Ecchi. You probably know what it is. Love it or hate it, it is a big part of the anime and manga community. And today we're going to be talking all about it. Where the name came from, what it is, and how it started. And even though a lot of you probably already know, I want to start by solidifying just exactly is an ecchi series. Simply put, it's a series full of fan service, at least of the sexual kind. It can include semi-naked characters, ecchi conversations and situations, and a focus on panty shots and just general sexualization of all the characters in it. However, ecchi series don't have explicit sex scenes in it. Some of them may have censored ones, but that is the line that separates ecchi from hentai. Probably the most common ecchi genre is ecchi harem rom-coms, a particular style of romantic comedies that focus on a main character having a lot of romantic partners throughout the series. While not every harem rom-com is necessarily ecchi, Nisekoi quintuplets being a notable exception, a great majority is. But with all of that said, have you ever wondered why we call it ecchi? What does ecchi even mean? Well, it means H, the letter H as said in English, which if you never noticed is also the first letter of the word hentai. So yeah, ecchi as a word is nothing more than a slang for hentai, which by itself means sexual perversion or pervert. Ecchi then morphed to mean sexy or naughty, and the word in Japan is actually even used to describe pornographic content. But in the West, the anime and manga fans used it to describe the content in some of the series that they watched. Actually, the word in Japanese for what we call ecchi series in the West is oiroke, which can also mean sexy. And yes, it's the same oiroke from Oiroki no Jutsu in Naruto, or sexy jutsu. So after all the explanation, let's talk about the main topic of this video. What is the first ecchi manga? Well, if we assume ecchi to be any and all usage of soft erotic references, then it becomes very hard to pinpoint. Sex is something that has been part of it since before art, and so it's always been referenced, even in Japanese art from thousands and thousands of years ago. However, the first ecchi manga series, as we know it to be, is far more recent, and it can be traced back to the very first issue of Weekly Shonen Jump. Released on August 1st of 1968, this contains multiple one-shots from a lot of mangaka, and one of them is by the then pretty unknown Go Nagai. Here it is, it's called Harenchi Gakuen, and while this one-shot by itself doesn't contain much that could be considered ecchi other than two main characters falling into girls' locker rooms, it's this series that in the next following months will turn into our first ecchi series. While the manga isn't really ecchi from the start, it isn't without its spice. Harenchi Gakuen can be translated to scandalous or shameless school, and its main draw is how shameless their characters are, from the students to the teachers. Every character is a pervert. The teachers attack the kids attack the teachers, and no one really is a good moral character. So you can see how it can devolve into etchiness. The one-shot was a success, so Go Nagai returned in December of the same year to pursue Harenchi Gakuen as a full-fledged series. Go Nagai told Weekly Playboy that the series wasn't really supposed to have sex and nudity originally, but one of the reasons that manga was becoming so famous was all the pretty girls in it. So the editor suggested Go Nagai to go bolder with the manga, and so he did. The manga started featuring panty shots and even topless nudity, as Go Nagai tried to push further and further the limits of what he could do in a kid's magazine. But let's talk about that for a second. Weekly Shonen Jump is a kids magazine. Sure, a good chunk of its audience is teenagers and even adults, but it also is read by kids as far back as elementary and middle school. If your kid can read and he's Japanese, he's reading Weekly Shonen Jump. And while Japan is a little bit more loose with its limits, Harenchi Gakuen was rapidly spiraling outside what parents were comfortable showing their kids. When parents started seeing what kind of stuff their kids were reading, they railed together. A lot of parent-teacher associations from all over Japan joining together against Harenchi Gakuen and Shonen Jump. Ironically enough, Go Nagai did not see this coming, as he told in the same interview with Weekly Playboy, and I quote, "When I first heard about the opposition, I didn't think it was directed toward me. I kept wondering what the bad stuff in Shonen Jump was that will make everybody complain. I made it a point to never draw sex scenes, avoid pictures of the genitals, and make nudes cute rather than sexy." This was of course not enough, but the bigger the outrage by the parents, the bigger the support by the readers and kids as well. Instead of going down southly, Go Nagai decided to make a shift to a more serious and darker tone, culminating in a war arc that saw all the characters fighting for freedom of speech, but ultimately being killed by the PTA the associations that so fought the manga in real life, with the entire cast that Harenchi Gakuen would see its end in chapter 78 of February 8th, 1971 in the issue number 100 of Weekly Shonen Jump, only to return after less than a year in the January 1st issue of 1972, and finally ending in September of the same year with 116 chapters. In the end, the protests never truly killed the manga. Just between 1970 and 71 there were 4 movies and 27-episode TV series, all in live action. There was also a new OVA released in 1996 that saw the story put in a 90s setting, and that OVA also had a manga adaptation. And even as late as 2007 we also had a sequel called Harenchi Gakuen The Company that lasts for about a year in Business Jump. There's a lot of things that we hold Go Nagai for daring to put into manga first, and Bare Boobs just happens to be one of his first contributions. But he also innovated in a lot of other genres, having one of the first small choujos with Kyuriani, one of the first post-apocalyptic manga with Violence Jack, and creating the entire mecha genre with Mazinger Z, as well as inspiring tons and tons of gritty seinen with his 1972 title, Devilman. It's art-driven called Harenchi Gakuen, one of his most important contributions, but it is still an important landmark, both for his career and for manga in general, for what it brought and for what it caused. But Harenchi Gakuen was not the only series to start in that issue of Weekly Shonen Jump. If you want to know what was Jump's first series and mangaka, you should really click on that video on the left. And if you watched till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.